Hey internet friends, before I made this video, I reached out to y'all on Instagram and social media saying if any of y'all live in Springfield, Ohio, message me and confirm or deny these reports. As always, I'll never reveal your identity. I'm not interested in doing that. It's always anonymous, and y'all can message me anytime with these reports, okay? Even if you're not from Springfield, there's another town in Alabama. There's Conyers and Georgia. There are reports from all across the U.S. We just need on-the-ground people to tell us what they're seeing so we can essentially see if this is a narrative, a politically crafted narrative being produced and promoted for political gain or divisiveness, or if this is really happening. And what y'all told me on Instagram, it's really happening. Citizens of Springfield, citizens of Dayton, Ohio, people who live 10, 20 minutes outside these city lines are telling me 100% absolutely, and it's being downplayed. These things are happening, they're happening every day, and they're affecting our lives. Hey internet friends, what happens when your front porch gets crowded with 20,000 new neighbors who you have very little in common with? That scenario is knocking at the door of Springfield, Ohio, where up until recently, life was rolling by like a slow Sunday afternoon. But this week, Springfield is at the center of something much bigger. Something its citizens didn't ask for, nor were they prepared for, but thanks to the federal government, Springfield locals now feel like total strangers in their hometowns.
I'm done with what I'm seeing. It is so unsafe in my neighborhood anymore. I have the homeless that were trying to camp out, and I have made concessions with them, and I try to help them the best I can to keep them from trying to squat on my property. But it is so unsafe. I have men that cannot speak English in my front yard screaming at me, throwing mattresses in my front yard, throwing trash in my front yard. And I can't. Look at me. I weigh 95 pounds. I couldn't defend myself if I had to. My husband is elderly, and last night, after living in this home for 45 years, he said, "Noelle, guess what? It's time to pack up and move." He said, "We can't do this anymore." He said, "It's killing both of us mentally." I don't understand what you expect of us as citizens. I mean, I understand they're here under temporary protected status, and you're protecting them, and I understand that our city services are overwhelmed and understaffed, but who's protecting us? If we're protecting them, who's protecting me? I want out of this town. I am sorry. Please give me a reason to stay. Thank you.
Thank you.
According to recent reports, an estimated 20,000 Haitians have been imported to Springfield in the last several years, a town with around 60,000 citizens before the influx of foreigners. How can the federal government move this many people into your town and it's not generally regarded as an act of war? I mean, technically, they're not all considered refugees either, because under the Refugee Act, the government doesn't require Haitians to have refugee status to receive benefits. Benefits which, according to former Ohio State Representative Kyle Kohler, in a recent speech, include but are not limited to receiving between $600 and $1,600 per month on debit cards through the Refugee Cash Assistance Program. And y'all always love it when we do live math on here. So if we break that down and say the average Haitian gets, $1,000 of assistance per month, that's $20 million per month in taxpayer funding, or $240 million a year in taxpayer funding. But let's just call it $250 million on the conservative side before food stamps and all of that. Also, Haitians are being placed in the local Springfield school systems, of course, which are now dealing with over 1,600 non-English speaking students having enrolled in the last several years. And just to add context here, many Haitians are eligible for temporary protected status, or TPS, allowing them legal residence and work rights in the U.S., meaning they can't be sent home, deported, removed.
Rob Brew is the mayor of Springfield, Ohio, and Brian Heck is the city manager, and they both join me now. Good morning to you both. Mayor Brew, tell us what's going on in Springfield.
Well, what we've seen is just such a quick increase of our population over the last 5 years. This has overwhelmed our safety services and caused great concern for our community.
We had a housing shortage well before this immigration crisis that's impacted our community, and this has just made it 100 times worse. And so it's setting communities like Springfield up to fail.
New Haiti, Springfield, is experiencing a significant housing crisis, largely due to the influx of Haitian migrants. This rapid growth has strained housing, healthcare, and education. Springfield is now stretched thinner than, to paraphrase Tolkien, like butter scraped over too much bread. Needless to say, tensions between Haitians and Springfield residents are heightened. There are all these reports of Springfield residents missing pets, like household pets, and that Haitians have been caught eating these pets, cats, and ducks from the park. Again, those are reports, and MSM is saying that's all fake and racist and politically motivated.
These Haitians are running into trash cans. They're running into buildings. They're running into, they flipping cars in the middle of the street. And I don't know how, y'all can be comfortable with this. I don't know, who's getting paid from it. I honestly feel like someone's getting paid from it in the background. They're in the park grabbing up ducks by their neck and cutting their head off and walking off with them and eating them.
That is why, also, starting with our administration, we gave TPS, temporary protected status, to Haitian migrants, 55,000. And then more recently, we extended temporary protected status to over 100,000 Haitian migrants for that very reason, that they need support, they need protection.
But of course, there was one boy who was actually killed by a Haitian in Springfield in August of 2023. His name was Aiden Clark, an 11-year-old riding the bus on his first day of school when Herman Joseph, a Haitian migrant without a driver's license, drove a minivan into oncoming traffic and hit Aiden and his classmates' school bus. The bus was overturned, ejecting Aiden, who died on site. More than 20 other students were hurt. Did the MSM seek justice for Aiden and his senseless death on the first day of school? Of course they didn't. The story vanished. Poof. While this story might seem like it's about Haitians, it's actually not. Not to me anyway. Not this Haitian story, not the Venezuelan gang story. It's not about a foreign people breaking down a town, but rather a plan, a long time in the making, coming together. I've been reporting on this channel for, 8 years? And from where I'm sitting, the United States is actually falling apart and being split up into these strongholds, these warlord strongholds, essentially. Springfield is just the one you know about, but tomorrow it's your town. And this isn't me vying for a political candidate to fix it all. I'm just telling you the reality of what we've allowed to happen. And the biggest and most violent group wins, while we're told we're racist and bigoted for not liking it. In fact, the, quote, globalist cabal is helping make it happen. They told you it was going down in their predictions for 2030. The annihilation of American sovereignty. Nations without borders. The U.S. wouldn't be a superpower anymore. And bad foreign actors and MSM grifters are coming out of the woodwork to tell you it's not happening. That these stories are politically motivated. But it's you, your family, and your children who are left to deal with the reality of our situation. The destruction of America. Why are foreigners' human rights the problem and responsibility of the American taxpayer when the average house costs $416,000? Hardworking people who spent their lives serving the U.S. can't even get basic health care benefits. And we're giving these people debit cards and free health care? Free for them, but not for the taxpayer. If illegal immigrants are so great, according to progressive talking points, then they should be sent back to their country so they can benefit their homeland. U.S. inflation is out of control. The nation is, 40 trillion something in debt? And while we're all paying into Social Security, we're never going to see a dime of it. It's running dry. But somehow we're talking about mortgage access for illegal immigrants in California when you and your wife saved up 10 years just to afford a down payment on a house and now must compete with BlackRock in a bidding war buying up the whole neighborhood in cash. I believe they want to destroy every small town in America so people are forced to live in larger cities where they can be easily monitored and controlled. I believe they will never stop unless forced to. So many nations have been fractured by people who benefited from the destruction. And the remnants of those nations will be imported to every small town across America, unable to assimilate. Small towns will never be the same if this continues. Your children will never be safe, and your family will never achieve even a fraction of this mythical and elusive American dream. That's not fear-mongering. That's just cold, hard reality from someone who has been predicting and reporting on this for years. I would encourage you to start on a local level and find out which refugee resettlement organizations are actively operating in your jurisdiction. And listen, these organizations can't even handle the tiniest bit of press without calling whoever is challenging them a white supremacist or an alt-right character or a bigot. But after acting like a victim and all the name-calling, what do they have left? Find out the NGOs funding them. It varies from state to state.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Lisa Hayes, and I am a resident of Springfield, Ohio, and I'm also a registered voter. You know, it's the first time I've ever spoke at the commission meeting, and I'm going to try to make it a good talk with you. Okay, I would like to know how many of you sitting up there tonight go into the grocery stores here in the city, Walmart, here in the city, to do your shopping. I'm going to tell you, 64 years old, and I don't know what kind of label you can put on this, but I'm taking my cart down the grocery aisle, and I have 3 immigrants strapped across the aisle. Seen me coming, would not budge, wouldn't even, and I said, excuse me. Maybe they didn't understand what I was saying, but I'm sure they understood that I was trying to get through that aisle. So I have no recourse now but to bust through it. I'm not afraid to do so. You know, I would like to see them have some common respect, some common decency. Do not try to bully your way through Springfield, Ohio. It's not going to work out well.
I am a disabled elderly woman that has such high anxiety leaving my house that I rarely do. And when I do, I'm armed and I have my 120-pound pit bull with me. I've been followed. I've been groped. I'm 58 years old. I've been called racist because I'm white. I've lived in the south end of town for my whole entire life. Our family home is there. My children have homes there. Recently, my youngest moved to Montana to get out of here.
Do we know where the individuals we're discussing are coming from? Where their point of origin is? Because you're treating them like lawful U.S. citizens, which they are not.
Okay, so I'm going to cut it off because we've had 3 people to come up. I'm going to cut it off because we have no reason, again, we have no reason to launch an investigation or to treat people differently because of how they look. There's no reason for it.
Who said that?
Well, that's just what I'm saying. I just said that. Tiffany just said that.
Okay,
so
I didn't say that.
But I said it. But there's no reason for us to discuss this any further.
These individuals came from Haiti.
Are valid concerns that we need to have. Valid concerns, Laura. People come here all the time. We visit Birmingham. We visit
Haiti is a failed state. Their president was assassinated in 2021. There is no way the State Department can vet these individuals.
We're done, and I'm going to ask this to...
Please let him talk.
You have shut up. I was very specific. Okay, I'm going to ask all of you to leave because this meeting is over. If having no other further business, I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
All right, second?
Second.
All in
Good to
favor?
know.
They're sitting up there lying.
Good to know. Don't want to hear the truth.
This is our city.
This is our city.
Can you just say that we can't speak, that we have no word? I'm from Southern California.
What would you like us to do?
To cut off public debate in the middle of a meeting is a violation of law.
What they're going to do, they're going to spend our tax money. That's the money they're going to be spending. They speak French. Our teachers will be able to educate the children in French. So we're going to have to hire teachers. All male teachers.
Hey internet friends, in the first part of this video, we covered what's going down in Springfield, Ohio. Governor Mike DeWine of Ohio has a strong link to Haiti through his work as a quote-unquote humanitarian. He set up the Becky DeWine School in one of Haiti's poorest neighborhoods. DeWine and his wife Fran have backed this project named after their late daughter since the 1990s. What they're implying is all this time spent in Haiti has affected his policy towards Haitian immigrants in Ohio. For example, DeWine pushed for the state to help Haitian migrants in places like Springfield. And we see how that's worked out. It should also be noted that all these powerful people in the US government launder a lot of money in Haiti. It was like Ukraine light before all the stuff in Ukraine went down.
The Becky DeWine School they support is run by a Massachusetts-based Catholic group, Hands Together, run by Father Tom Hagen, who gave the opening prayer at DeWine's inauguration. The school is located in one of Haiti's poorest areas.
And I just want to take a moment and say that this particular topic, there's so many angles to cover. There's so much information, and it's going to annoy me to no end after I upload this video because I'm not going to be able to cover all of it in one go. And that, I love to summarize information. I love to do it, okay? It's going to annoy me, but I'm doing my best over here, okay? So I wanted to read this Twitter thread, this X thread. Do we call it X? Do we call it Twitter? I'm not sure. How 20,000 Haitians stormed Ohio to take jobs that were never advertised. The Haitian invasion of Ohio has created a lot of buzz. There are a lot of unexplained aspects of it that people find odd. One of these strange happenings is that locals reported that the jobs the Haitians came for were never advertised to the local population. So how did the Haitians find out about them? It turns out that a network of federal grant recipient organizations have quietly seized control of nearly the entire job market in the U.S. and work to ensure that openings remain hidden so that refugees can take them ahead of American citizens. How many job openings remain hidden? The internal estimates of this network put the numbers of hidden openings at 80% of all available jobs. 80%, so almost the whole hog. The way this network has seized control of the labor market of the United States is easy enough to understand. Firstly, it has positioned itself as a way to remove recruiting costs for employers. Next, it offers employers laborers who can work for lower wages by also providing its quote-unquote refugees with a plethora of social welfare not available to the typical American worker. Finally, it can provide access to the entire global labor market by setting the conditions of refugee status effectively to cover anyone in the world. If an employer needs nurses, janitors, programmers, police, or literally any kind of worker, the network can provide them to employers at a lower rate of pay than what an American citizen would require due to not having access to the same welfare benefits. These globally sourced scab workers don't require health insurance and have all living expenses subsidized by federal programs. If the typical American had their health, food, and housing costs covered, they would also be able to work for a fraction of their existing wages, because the money ain't going out of your paycheck to go to health insurance and taxes and all these things. Instead, they cover the cost of these global laborers by paying much, much, much more for their food, housing, and healthcare. Is this sustainable? If the trend of authoritarian communism continues to win, then yes. If 80% of work opportunities are already exclusive to connected networks, most of the public will soon have no choice but to work directly for the government. The military recruiting crisis will be resolved by simply continuing to deny access to employment and driving up the cost of living for citizens. And here, the consultant, Civilian 1A, thank you for this thread, gives the receipts here. The plan is simple and cruel. Don't even let Americans see a job opening, apprenticeship application, or social program, and instead fill every possible opening with global labor being subsidized with every possible form of social welfare. Also, I wanted to put it in perspective for why Haitians are coming over here, why the U.S. has a vested interest in Haiti. If you remember in 2010, after that big earthquake that wrecked Haiti, Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State and Bill Clinton was Haiti's special envoy, and they oversaw property relief in the country. Lots of dirty deeds went down then because the country was thrown into total chaos. Nobody was paying attention. Nobody was watching. And the Clinton Foundation raised money for Haiti, but about 90% of that money was effectively stolen from the country. And like I said, there was all kinds of wretched stuff that happened in the aftermath, not limited to Laura Silsby being arrested for trafficking 33 Haitian children and the Clinton Foundation lawyers bailing her out and reducing her sentence. Only for Laura here, who blocked me on Twitter, only for her to change her name and go to work for some company that powers the technology behind Amber Alert. Naturally, isn't that such a feel-good story? There's also all kinds of Epstein money tied up in Haiti, and in particular, the Clinton Foundation. Even after his 2008 plea agreement, where the FBI was well aware of his activities and proclivities. If he even was a real person, by the way. Sorry to say that after all this time, but everything awful that ever happened gets put on this guy who conveniently gets offed while waiting in jail. That seems like script writing to me. But anyway, why are the Haitians here when the Clintons collected billions to rebuild their country? Quote, Klaus Eberwein, a former Haitian government official, was found dead in Miami from a gunshot wound ruled as suicide in 2017. He was known for his criticism of the Clinton Foundation's activities in Haiti, where he had served as a director general of Haiti's Economic Development Agency. Eberwein's death occurred shortly before he was expected to testify, fueling conspiracy theories about his involvement with exposing corruption. End quote. We haven't even discussed the open-air prisons, but given that nearly $13 billion in donations were given to Haiti, it makes sense why the country harbors animosity towards the Clinton family. Of course, Haiti itself has a complicated history, and the westernized half of the Isle of Hispaniola, where Haiti is located, prospers while the rest lives in the third world. Why don't the Haitians go over to the DR for refuge? It's a shorter ride. Haiti has been on the permanent path to poverty for a while now, as they were forced to pay reparations to France for Haitian independence starting around 1825, amounting to 150 million francs, which of course impacted its economy and development, or lack thereof. This reparation came after the Haitian slave revolution, where Haiti's first ruler targeted and massacred mainly French and British colonists there, who were hanged in the gallows, signaling to passerbys that Haiti had rid itself of Europeans. Some numbers suggest that 5,000 colonists were massacred in this way, while other numbers suggest nearly 25,000. But they got rid of Whitey, okay? And I'm going to read a little blurb about Haiti because most people don't know, and I'll paraphrase as I go. The indigenous Taino people inhabited Haiti before recorded history, where they say Christopher Columbus discovered it in 1492. Sailed that ocean blue all the way to Hispaniola. He was really on a tear, wasn't he? Disease and war reportedly killed the indigenous population during the next century as the Spanish occupied the island. In the 17th century, a French colony in western Hispaniola became one of the world's wealthiest, thanks to its sugar and coffee plantations, which depended on African slave labor. So the Haitian population predominantly became African slave labor, not indigenous. Again, who owned the slave boats? Who sold the slaves? Who ran the slave trade? Who were the architects of slavery? These questions get you banned from the internet these days, but their answers are important. After the slaves revolted in 1791, France demanded restitution for its lost property. So these factors, along with the political instability, the foreign interference, and the natural disasters like earthquakes, those have all shaped Haiti's economic and political problems up until now. And now there's a big project to move all these Haitians to the U.S., into the small towns. What could go wrong? Should I play my Haiti video from like 7 years ago about the Clinton Foundation in Haiti? I think I will. I don't know if a lot of people know about the Clinton Foundation in Haiti. So, okay, we'll play it. We'll play it. Play the clip. To give you the full understanding of how Haiti became ground zero for the present-day global crime gang, we need to start at the beginning with a little accelerated history lesson. And fair warning, the history of Haiti is one brutal nightmare from beginning to end. Haiti is a country on the island of Hispaniola. 1/3 of the island is Haiti, and the rest is the Dominican Republic. The juxtaposition between these two countries is stark, with one side marked by wealth and the other by poverty. The Dominican Republic being a product of Spanish colonialism, and Haiti, a country descended from slaves, brought over during the French colonial period, but all that changed in 1791 when the slaves revolted against their slave masters. But that's not where the story takes a happy turn. Okay, we're just going to fast forward here because I discuss a lot of this later, but I don't go too deep into the Clinton Foundation later, so we're going to cover it right now. A terrible earthquake rattled Haiti, the aftermath being mass casualties, a wave of displaced persons, and a devastated country rife with chaos and confusion, creating the ideal grounds for corruption to flourish. But none of that matters for this video. What matters is that a devastating earthquake happened, and criminals exploited it, and they continue to. So who are the key players in the exploitation of Haiti? An already weak place with now defenseless people. And how did they manage to make a fortune off the tragedy of a country? Well, let us consider what resources Haiti has up for grabs after the earthquake. Oil, gold, minerals, children, and organs. And guess what? Haiti is not only a transoceanic shipping point for the Americas, but also for Africa and Europe as well. Convenient, huh? It's always the same players who desire these things because it's always the same syndicate of families willing to do anything to keep their power, wealth, and influence. For the elite minority to exploit the weak majority, specifically in the case of Haiti, corruption has to fester for a while, maybe for decades, through dictators and democracies and coups that seem organic, but they're actually controlled, creating a foundation of filth on which to build a house of cards. That's where DynCorp comes in, the CIA's privatized covert services contractor, which, by the way, was created within the same year as the CIA. DynCorp has a sordid history of sex slavery, rape, and child abuse. And wherever they go, from Bosnia to Colombia, it doesn't matter. DynCorp is consistent. Since at least 1994, DynCorp has been actively engaged in military activities in Haiti, and they're still there today, training local police and United Nations police, among other things, I'm sure. But that's just one piece of the puzzle. These criminals have to fly under the radar by being disguised as non-profit. Billion. Where did all the money go? To answer this question, I think we have to look at where the vultures were circling after the earthquake. Certainly some of the money went towards giving Hillary Clinton's brother a permit to this Haitian gold mine. Maybe some of it went toward bailing out Laura Silsby, who, along with the other members of New Life Children's Refuge, helped themselves to 33 Haitian children, most of whom were not even orphans. They said they were taking them to an orphanage they had yet to build, and were caught smuggling these children over the Dominican Republic border without papers, which Huma Abedin was quite interested in as she forwarded emails of news articles covering this story repeatedly to Hillary Clinton. I think it's safe to say that some of that money went towards jet fuel for the Clintons to fly out to Haiti and bail out Laura Silsby.
Organ trafficking, now
already.
Of the victims of the earthquake.
Yeah. So,
do you know that for sure?
Yeah, I know that for sure, and it was discussed in Montreal during the conference.
And do you know for sure that children are being trafficked now?
There is children trafficking for children and adult person also because they need all type of organs. So
No, but I mean live children. Are they being trafficked now?
the report I received, yes.
Then again, maybe some of the money went towards various medical instruments for these doctors who were harvesting organs live on camera.
Well, you know what's interesting, Tony, is they don't need more supplies, they need the right supplies. So on the one hand, they don't have tourniquets, and they have 2 blood pressure cuffs for 200 patients. But on the other hand, here's what they do have. They have corneas. Yes, these are actual corneas from cadavers that people lovingly donated, signed their organ card, and they have corneas. They're not doing cornea surgery here.
Right.
They're barely able to do amputations. Yeah, so, no one knows how these ended up here. I found them underneath the table next to a box of granola bars.
And if you think organ harvesting is just a spooky story, a complete myth, think again. When there's hundreds of thousands of young people waiting on a kidney or heart transplant so they can have a shot at a full life, how else is an 80-something-year-old oil tycoon supposed to get a fresh heart to live another 30 minutes? Fun fact, people actually travel all over the world to Israel to get an organ transplant, which is interesting because Israeli Defense Forces medical team was praised for being some of the first doctors to help out in Haiti.
One unit has become legendary, the Israeli Medical Unit.
A Liberal Democratic spokesperson in the House of Lords has just been sacked for accusing the Israeli troops of harvesting body parts in the aftermath of the earthquake. Israel admitted removing body parts during the autopsies in the 1990s without asking the relatives of the deceased as required by law, but denied every other.
I know I've probably skipped over a bunch of key players in the exploitation of Haiti, but I feel like I've given you the main ones. I didn't get to go into vaccine testing in Haiti, but maybe you can do your own research and get there. Hey internet friends, in college, my American history professor on the first day of class asked us if you wanted to defeat the U.S., how would you do it? Well, how would you defeat a unified nation? From within, of course. Everybody wants to talk about immigration this week like it's Biden's fault, or it's Trump's fault, or it's Kamala's fault. But immigration isn't just about who's coming. It's about who we are. It's like add more ingredients to your grandma's recipe. It changes the flavor for better or for worse. So let's discuss the plans put forth decades and decades ago to divide America. Whenever these things get brought up in mainstream discourse, they're never explained, just immediately shot down as conspiracy theory, which I believe is a disservice to all because I believe y'all are smart enough to come to your own conclusions. Let's lay out the facts, outline the ideas, and let you decide if these plans are merely theory, white supremacy talking points, or actually happening right in front of you. In the year 2000, the UN wrote a 177-page report on replacement migration. Basically, this document examined how migration could counteract population decrease in places like Japan, South Korea, and numerous European countries including the US, because of declining birth rates. And this document presented a litany of migration scenarios. It examined how immigration could address labor shortages and keep the economy rolling. But notice, curiously, it's not recommended that these nations encourage population growth through incentivizing family building, like we've seen Hungary do in recent years. But the solution is to bus in all these migrants. The United Nations doubled down on these migration plans in their 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Agenda 2030 is like the big butch Frankenstein sister to Agenda 21, okay? Which was adopted in September of 2015 and comprised of 17 Sustainable Development Goals. I break all this down in my book, The Deep State Encyclopedia, but basically Agenda 2030 outlines a blueprint for world socialism where migration is key to every development goal. All these aliens are the MVPs, with migrants recognized as, quote, agents of development. Keep in mind, 193 member states of the United Nations unanimously adopted the 2030 Agenda. If everybody from every nation is spread out everywhere, what's the point of nations, borders, and countries? Almost like a United Nations. I mean, no pun intended, the plan is right there in the name. They weren't hiding it from y'all. Might as well have a one world government while we're at it. So can we say that the open southern border of the U.S. is part of a deliberate plan to implement Agenda 2030? Well, don't answer that yet because there's more to consider. We got to go back to 1966. When Richard Cloward and Francis Fox-Piven, two sociologists, were teaching at Columbia University. They developed the Cloward-Piven strategy to essentially overload the U.S. welfare system, abusing it to the point of collapse, which would then send the U.S. into crisis mode. And the response to that crisis would be radical social change. They were hoping that this collapse would disrupt American capitalism. And in its place, there would be guaranteed annual income, so all the poor would have money and we could all live happily ever after on universal basic income. And no one will be defecating in the street or eating geese from the park. What a utopia. We'll all hold hands and sing songs. What does the Cloward-Piven strategy have to do with immigration, you ask? Well, baby, we gotta get those numbers up. Can't overload a system if there's no overload. So if we were to believe such a strategy is being implemented now, we could say that everyone flooding into the country who is on welfare is being used as a pawn in the army to destroy the current system. And the people, quote unquote, helping these aliens are well-funded, organized groups demanding more and more from the system. And the whole problem, that's not really a problem for people trying to implement this strategy, theoretically, allegedly, hypothetically. The problem is that our country is $40 trillion in debt, and at some point it's going to be like trying to squeeze water out of a rock. You're trying to milk a rock. Can't do it. And if this whole collapse comes to pass, it's a wrap for the Republic. You're done. You're done. Is there another angle, though, a racial angle to all of this? Besides just the diabolical scheming and forever being on the teat of the government? For the purposes of this video, I'm not saying there is. I'm not saying there's not. I'm saying it's up to you to decide. But we got to go back to 1924 to examine the details. So there was this politician who founded the Pan-European Union. His name was Richard von Coudenhove-Kalergi, whose dad was Austrian and whose mom was Japanese. Richard himself was a famous Freemason, and he was married to the famous Jewish Viennese actress Ida Roland. It's important to discuss the Pan-European Union as it was the predecessor to the European Union and aimed to foster a unified European state in a post-World War I world, with a stated goal of advocating for peace, cooperation, integration among European nations. Richard was really on one. He envisioned a world divided into enormous regional power blocks. Where popular history and mainstream media says his plan and writings were misinterpreted, starts where the plan to create a unified Europe began with replacing the native populations of Europe with a mixed race population, watering down the culture and erasing Europeans, which is suggested would make them a more controllable, homogenous populace because they wouldn't be weighed down by all these pesky things like culture and tradition, meaning they'd be easier to govern under something like a global regime. We can pretty much deduce that objectively, Richard here didn't have a problem with anything interracial, as he was clearly a product of it. He was an Austrian and Japanese baby. He was an Austronese baby. Where the ADL, who was founded to protect a Jewish man who was found guilty of raping and murdering a 13-year-old Mary Fagan, says this all gets very anti-Semitic, is that it suggested that Jewish architects are behind this plan as it's been modernized. Because they have all these Jewish organizations across Europe and America that get private and government funding specifically to help place these immigrants. And the only country that doesn't have to accept immigrants is Israel because it's socially and politically acceptable for Israel to remain racially pure. The ADL says that believing any part of this plan is anti-Semitic and it's absolutely not happening. It's not, none of this is happening right now. You're just imagining it because you're anti-Semitic. I have a clip that I'll show on the Rumble and X version of this video, but it's probably too zesty, too spicy for YouTube. Again, to bring it up to present day, you see such destabilization of countries and cultures through NATO's forever wars. where the result is flooding Europe in the West with refugees and people who have distinctly different cultures from the countries that they're being placed in. And as we've seen it play out, to our horror, some of these cultures, not all, but some, are simply incompatible with European or American cultures, social and religious norms. And this is why it's a topic of discussion. This is why Springfield, Ohio, and Aurora, and small towns in Alabama are being discussed, because they're injecting these towns with huge migrant populations. And it's like oil and water, honey. And instead of simply minding our own business and focusing on these issues on a national level, our politicians are warmongers who team up with the military contractors and make huge money on war while everyone else suffers. So what do you think? Conspiracy theory or conspiracy fact? How would you defeat the U.S.? How would it be possible? Let me know what you think, internet friends. You know, I always look forward to your comments. Thank you so much for watching, subscribing, and supporting my channel on Patreon, and buying my book, The Deep State Encyclopedia. Bye.
I'm just a fake silhouette, avoiding every threat. I wanna stay like a silhouette, but I can't do that. No, I can't do that.
What difference at this point does it make?
Those weapons of mass destruction got to be somewhere. Nope, no weapons over there.
We should not argue in the context of yesterday. We should really first analyze how the world has dramatically changed and is changing in an accelerating way.
I call upon all nations to do everything they can to stop these terrorist killers. Thank you. Now watch this drive.
Something that I'm breathing, telling me to sleep in.